Okay. Well, welcome to Travel Talk with Travel with Eva. And I have the pleasure of interviewing Miss Julia Brown today. And I'm looking forward to talking with you and sharing with our viewers and Facebook and social media friends more about Black Paris and Paris and beyond with Julia Brown. So let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm a little new to Blab, but my name is Eva Jordan Johnson, and I am the owner of Jordan Travel Enterprise. And I am a group special event travel consultant. I help you to host travel events that are easy, lucrative, and fun. I take the worry and stress off your plate and handle all the details so that you can enjoy time with your friends, clients, or your guests. Okay. And I'd like to introduce you to Julia right now. And Julia, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Thank you, Eva, and thanks for inviting me. And hello to everybody that is listening today. Thank you for joining us. Julia Brown, creator of Walking the Spirit Tours. I help people get a view of Paris that is very different from the traditional, but we do include the traditional. I introduce people or help them to get more immersed into the Black heritage side of Paris, and that's includes jazz, includes well-known personalities like Josephine Baker and James Baldwin, but it also includes taking people outside of Paris to places where Josephine would have lived or where James Baldwin would have lived. And so we blend the Black history and the Black heritage with the traditional. So you get all the wonderful and delicious things that France is known for, along with Black heritage and history and culture and food. And then we stretch farther than Paris as well, of course, outside to England, to Italy, to Germany, now to Canada as well. So we're introducing travelers to Black heritage and local culture at the same time.
And what caused you or motivated you to have this specialty that you have that's so amazing?
It's you know what, it's been a long time in coming for me. I was interested in all things French since I was a teenager. I had a French pen pal, so it was something like my focus has always been towards France, and so I eventually studied French. I moved to France. I studied in the south of France, and I met my husband there. And things just kind of roll along. And then when I was actually settled in France and married, I discovered the African American history there through my professor at the Sorbonne. And it was what an awakening that was. It was just opened my eyes, and I had been walking around the city just trying to make a living of that, and not knowing that I was walking past all these ghosts of these writers and entertainers and jazz musicians and all this heritage. Because when you look at Paris, and it's a very French city, right? You don't think of Black heritage at all because you don't see that many Black people outside of the main tourist areas. So to learn about this deep heritage that was there, it connected me so much more to the city, and it was like almost like a coming home. And I come from like a journalism background or a writer background, so my natural instinct is, well, I've got to tell people all about this. So I started telling people about it, and talking to the media, trying to contacting travel agents, and that's how that started. Just out of my pure love for history and for Paris and for researching. So I got to do everything that I love doing all in one.
So that's great to have a business that's your passion. I wanted to take some time to ask you some questions that I think that the viewers would be interested in. So how safe is Paris? Right now, there's so many things going on in the world, and I know that might be a question that's top of mind for some. How safe is it to travel?
It is to travel. It's safe. Just think about How many flights come into Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport every day? There's thousands of flights coming in every day and into every year into most major European cities, and they come in without incident. So there are isolated events here and there, but the odds are of being affected by a terrorist event directly is like 1 in 20 million. And you're more likely to get hurt in your hometown or in your own country these days than as a traveler to Europe. You know how the media blow kind of, you hear about it so much and it just seems just like every step you make is in danger, but it's not so. And you will see that there is a beefed up security system everywhere, all around the tourist attractions. There's more security and more security measures. For example, we as travelers we travel with our water bottle with this and that, and so we put a knapsack on. But now you can't go into like the Eiffel Tower or to the museums with a knapsack on. When you go into department stores, at the door they check your bag. So they're being very, very vigilant. So all eyes are on the ground and all eyes are around you, so you can be sure that your safety is primordial to the forces in place. So you're pretty safe, actually. You are quite safe. Very
And I would
safe.
think that now, as a result of what's going on, the security is even more heightened.
Yes, it is.
So
Yes,
you're
it is.
probably safer now than you were before.
Yes, exactly. It's just an odd sight to get used to, but it's for everybody, it's everybody's good and for your peace of mind, actually.
Right. Okay. Another question I'd like to ask is that it's common when travelers are considering Paris is, where is the best place to stay? When they ask you that question, how do you answer that?
And then I asked them back, what kind of traveler are you? Are you the person that likes to stay a little bit off the beaten path? Because then I would tell you there's certain neighborhoods you might want to go to where you can get like a full, rich experience and you feel like you're really, like you're getting to know the French and that you're almost like becoming a French in 2 weeks. Or is it your first time and you'd like to see all the tourist attractions? You'd like to feel, just be able to walk to most things. So in that case, I would say if this is your first time and you really want to do most of the tourist things, but still, try out some things off the path, I'd stay in central Paris. Like the fifth district, the sixth district, the fourth, the first, all those districts all kind of center around the river. They're the left bank or the right bank around the river. So I would say in those areas, but the eighth is like the Champs-Élysées area, and you're not going to get the experience of living in a neighborhood. You're going to be a hotel and attractions kind of thing. If you go a little further north to the opera area, you're going to mix both, and there's lots of shopping around in that area. So I would say make sure, number one thing, when you look on a Google map, make sure you're close to the metro or have like a 5, maybe 10-minute walk. And that would probably be the very first thing, because then you can get anywhere.
Okay. I'm thinking about clients who are perhaps in a wheelchair or have a disability.
Right.
Is Paris a city that is accessible?
We often complain that it's not moving as fast in that direction as it should be, but there have been great strides made, honestly, in the hotels. Most 90% of the hotels have made some provision for people that are in wheelchairs or have reduced mobility. And for example, in some of the hotels, you can even go to the concierge and ask to rent like a walker or a walking device, so you don't have to bring your own. Many of the tour buses have provisions for that as well. The place where you may not see it as much is like when you're on the sidewalk. They don't all have that little slant down for chairs to roll through. Or in the metro is not so kind, definitely not so kind to people with reduced mobility. But then in that case, you may want to use taxis, or if you're traveling with a group, a minivan that has that mobility. And so you might hire a driver for the week if you're there for a week.
Okay. Thank you. Now, why should someone include Black Paris when they're considering a tour? uh, to Paris? To Paris.
Because it's and when you say considering Black Paris, the people often ask, is Black Paris tourism just for black people? Not at all, not at all. To include Black Paris elements like the history of jazz, or following the jazz trail, or following certain personalities, um, it is acknowledging the contribution of the Black culture to the larger French culture, and we all know that the influence on the French culture has been enormous. Like, again, through the jazz, through the writers, through the artists, but even before that, there were groupings of anti-slavery and slave owners, and there was a strong movement. So you can even walk through Paris and do a tour on the anti-slavery and what was the situation during first people who held slaves there. So there's a lot of history that is not always told mainstream, but if you just go a little bit behind the scenes, there it brings out another side of French history that you may not have thought of to ask. And that is history that becomes European history, and it becomes the influence of the diaspora outside of the diaspora. So it is a large picture, and is not just directed towards interest in Black culture.
Okay. So what are some of the options for the Black Paris tours?
Endless, actually.
Endless.
Endless options. Well, you can start first of all, if you have a very short amount of time, or you just want to add just a little bit of, like we say, add a little Black to your itinerary. Take a tour, take a walking tour that, like, it might be 2 hours or 3 hours. It'll walk you through one of the popular districts, like the Latin Quarter or Montmartre district, the Champs-Élysées area. And then you get to see, certainly not what's written on the wall, not written on the plaques. You'll get to see a whole different level of participation in French life. And at the same time, you are seeing French culture and how it mixes together. So you get two stories in one. So the walking tour brings you both the traditional and the Black. And then if you want to take a little bit longer, or you would rather take a private bus, as we have, then you do a bus tour, and it takes in a wider area. So you go to the north end, to the Montmartre district, then you go down towards the Latin Quarter district and Montparnasse, and then to the west end, to the Champs-Élysées. So you get the full picture. You can also go to African or diaspora restaurants. There's lots of concerts, like no shortage of concerts, because as you know, jazz is still very well revered. So there's many opportunities, concerts or festivities or festivals. There are even consumer events like Paris Tropical, it features the islands. There is another one coming up next month, and the name has just escaped me. That it's the world cultures together, so you can bring that all together, and you see lots of, you can get into the Martinican, Guadeloupean, African, and meet people when you go to them. You can actually talk to people that live in Paris and start establishing relationships with people. So there's a number of ways to enjoy Black culture in Paris.
And when would you say, two questions. What would you say is a good time of year to visit Paris? And then also, if you're a jazz aficionado and you just love jazz, is there a particular times that are better than others to visit Paris?
There are jazz festivals. For example, let me do the jazz part first. If you want to go to Paris and you say, I'm going to go see some of the most fabulous jazz ever, then you would probably go anytime between March, when the Balneo Blues Festival starts, and then that goes right through festivals right through into October. So you can catch one festival at least that time, and you get a large dose of it. But throughout the entire year, there's all those jazz clubs that have regular scheduled and small name and big name entertainers. So you're going to get something. As I said, you can go to a big name club a dinner club, but you can also go to a very small one where there's no cover charge and you're in and out. You might go to one, there's some like near Notre Dame Cathedral. You just pop in, you have a drink or two, and then you go to another one that's up the street, Boulevard Saint Jacques. So you could make it as relaxed as you want or as a formal event as you want for jazz. So all year is actually good. And then even if you don't stay in Paris, there's a large number of jazz festivals outside of Paris, so going towards the south of France. And that's another part of your itinerary, part of it in Paris, part of it in the Nice area or on the east, north of Provence area, and that'll get you expanding your view of France and seeing it. And you'll be surrounded by all the French people and international people that just love jazz.
Okay.
And so your first part of the question was, when's the best time to go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Probably the most crowded and the most expensive time is high season, of course, would be so from May, June, right through to middle of September. So you're going to pay higher airfare, the hotels as well. But you can still, I mean, there's so many hotels in Paris that the bigger thing to avoid is to go when they have trade fairs on, because that's when the big hotels get booked up. And then you have in the off season, so let's say from middle of September, end of September, right through to April, those are ideal times to go because the hotels offer you more packages, more options, more anything like specialties to get you in there, and so you probably get more, as they say, more bang for your buck if you go off season. But the weather is great in October. It's the harvest season, so if you want to go see, for example, out to the Champagne region and see how the vines, how it's harvested, or to the Loire Valley or to Bordeaux, it's spectacular to look at. But there's the wine celebrations and the wine festivals at that time as well. And at the end of November, you'd go if you particularly want a Christmas theme, because then the Christmas lights go up around the last week of November, and then go right through to the beginning of January. And it's beautiful. It's I mean, you don't even mind the cold weather, because the cool weather is part of the enjoyment in and out of cafes. You know, in the summer you're always outside. In the cooler weather, you want to be inside and enjoying the beautiful decor of the restaurants and trying that French onion soup and trying the different kinds of warm dishes that they have, that is actually French kind of soul food.
Okay. How cold does it, thinking about being in Paris at Christmas time, how cold does it get? Is it similar to like a New York cold?
Yes.
Or is it more like a Wisconsin or, Chicago cold, windy?
No, the Chicago cold would be in the mountains. So if you're going to skiing, you'd probably find that there on the east, in the eastern, the Alps, or in towards the German border. That's where you get that kind of cold. But if you're in Paris or west of Paris, it's a kind of a wet New York type of cold, yeah. And snow is it comes once in a while, and it's beautiful, and it's something new and kind of exciting. But they have skating rinks, and so it gets cold enough that the ice stays. So skating is one of the fun activities. And last year they had a skating ring at the Eiffel Tower, and they have it at City Hall, and they do everything to make it like magical, like really. So Christmas is fantastic. Early December, and the prices are fantastic. Really.
It sounds wonderful. Sometimes here in Florida, Christmas time doesn't feel quite Christmassy.
No,
with
I know.
the sunshine and the palm trees with Christmas lights on it. So that sounds wonderful.
So we see you next Christmas, Eva.
Okay. Let me see what I'd like to ask next. Now you do Beyond Paris. So tell me about the Beyond. I have clients who might be interested they may be interested in Paris, but they might be interested in the Beyond piece.
Okay.
So, okay.
When I started developing the Beyond part elements or excursions. They were to, it's because when I lived in France, France is a small country, relatively speaking, so it was easy just to get on the train and go to the Normandy coast or go down south where my husband's family lived, or to Nice. And there was the countryside, and what you got out there was so different from Paris. It was a fantastic experience that I wanted other people to try. And I know most people, the average length of a vacation is 7 days, right? So you can maybe fit in one, maybe two of those excursions. So I think the beyond part is best looked at if it's thematic. For example, if you're interested in World War I or World War II and the African American participation in that, the World War I, we would take you out to the Champagne region to the east. So you'd go to see the Western Front, and you'd see where the African American soldiers fought, where they died, where there are still memorials for them there. And then right the next day, you'd go to the Champagne region, which is right next door. And so you go 2 in 1. And then if you're interested more in the World War II, D-Day, we'd go to the Normandy. And then while you're doing the Normandy, doing the beaches of Normandy and learning and seeing the African American participation as well as the Allied troops participation, then you also get to taste and sample Normandy with the cider and all their special cheeses. Everybody knows Camembert cheese and Brie cheese. Well, at that you go straight to their home. So it's the great thing about traveling outside is not just the history, but to taste and to sample all of those foods and goods that we know that we can get in our grocery store, but let's go right to the source. And that's the kind of the beauty of it. And then, there's all the history there. If you're interested, like this year coming up is going to be about medieval times. So William the Conqueror. So if you've got children with you, you can go see all of his home. You can see the tapestry and what kid doesn't?
It froze up a little bit there. I don't know if you see that. The screen is frozen.
It's lagging a wee bit.
Okay, now you're back.
Okay, now I'm back. Okay. So the excursions are thematic. If you're interested in Josephine Baker, we would go down to the southwest of France and see and walk through her chateau, and you get such a feeling of Josephine when you walk through her many rooms, and you see her medals, you see her clothing that has been restored, you see her bathrooms, you see where her children slept, you see where she had her everyday dinner with her family, her mom, her husband, those 12 children. And that is a special trip all in itself. It's almost like a pilgrimage. So we can take you down to there. You can do a private trip. You can go with a group. So we put group trips together, and many people have done that. We can organize a coach for your group, or you can organize it on the train, or you can fly in. And if you're doing, for example, if you're doing a river cruise and it docks in Bordeaux, it's not far away. The Josephine Baker Chateau is about an hour and a half away, so we can add that as a pre and post. The same, we do that for the Normandy trips if you want to do the D-Day beaches, but also for the at Paris. So many of our excursions are themed excursions. You go to Nice, and then of course you can't come away without seeing where James Baldwin lived, or where Josephine Baker's actually buried, and these are they're scattered here and there, so it's certainly worth the trip. But we would like to anchor it with the Black culture, and then even outside of France, we go. London has such a rich Black culture. There are walking tours there. There are lectures you can attend, and the people that we work with in London are so very, very engaged that London will never be the same. And they have that, like France, they have that shipbuilding history. So there is a museum to the shipbuilding, but also to the sugar plantations. And so it's a way when you travel in Europe and you take one or two of these excursions to widen your sense of being Black in the wider world, because you get to touch on the experiences of the Africans and the Caribbeans and the African American and Canadian. So bring us back to Canada. Now we're doing excursions in Canada. I mean, the advantage of that is because there's a lot of American history that has come up to Canada through the Underground Railroad, but through the Loyalists coming up the East Coast and landing in Nova Scotia. So there are maybe people listening here today that might have ancestors that left United States and went to Nova Scotia and have founded families. You might have family in Nova Scotia that you don't know about. And
Wow.
with the American dollar as strong as it is against the Canadian dollar, that trip is going to cost you very little, almost like 30% less than you would pay if you were paying if it was a trip in the United States. And then, Canada we're pretty safe. We're nice people up here.
Right.
And Toronto, you come up to Toronto and there's, you can take the day trip to Niagara or to the Detroit, just north of the Windsor area where there is Black history, the Underground Railroad there. So very easily reached, and you don't have to learn another language except if you go to Montreal, and Montreal has its own Black history as well. The what was it? The railway workers in railway porters from the United States did the trip from Montreal to New York and Montreal to the other points in the East Coast, and they lived in Montreal. So there is a community of ancestry, United States and African American ancestry in Montreal, and Oscar Peterson, the jazz musician, is from there. You see a big mural of his on the wall, and so there's lots of places that have that Black heritage. So if Paris is the jumping off point, there's a lot of places that we could take you outside of that.
There's so many choices and so many things to learn and explore. And the Underground Railroad piece also is just very fascinating and
close.
And close, just over in Canada. I would love to, if you're interested, we would love to help you plan a group to Paris or to Canada to experience some of the wonderful options that Julia has mentioned. Let me see if I have any other questions that I want to ask you, or do you have anything that you would like to add that maybe I haven't asked, that questions that as clients or travel agents connect with you that they often ask that you think would be valuable to share?
Okay, so the number one question is where to stay. The other two question, how expensive is it? So people often think that, well, there's two conceptions. Either it's going to be as cheap as it might be traveling in the States, and Europe is more, it has to be said, Europe is more expensive than the United States. And the concept of discounts and bargains and that is just not the same mentality. So I don't want people to be disappointed when they come to Europe, that they're not going to get as many discounts and bargains as they think, but they'll get a whole experience that is worth paying the price for. And you don't have to spend big bucks. You don't have to stay in a 5-star hotel. 3.5 is good too. And they even have fancy hostels if you want to go that way. And a lot of people do an Airbnb, but the apartments, you can do Airbnb, or you can go a more secure route and rent an apartment. We are connected with apartment rentals. So if you want to get a feeling of not being a tourist, I want to just immerse into the culture. So there's many different ways to do Paris and to do Europe according to your budget. But the reality is you can spend as much as you want, but you can spend, I would say the average trip, and I get this question, how much is the average trip? The average trip is outside of airfare to get just a good few activities, and then you spend time wandering around and discovering on your own, is going to be $2,500 US minimum. Okay. That's I would say, yeah.
And if someone is interested in not the minimum, but they're interested in more of a moderate hotel,
I tell people.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I cut you off. I would say what I usually tell people is count no less than $3,500. That's what I say. And if you want to splash out, you want to do something big, like you might want to take that excursion to the Champagne region, or you might want to stay in a chateau while you're here, and you want to do something really special, or you want to do the dinner on the top of the Eiffel Tower at the Jules Verne restaurant. Put a little bit more into it, because you know what people say? People often say, oh, that that's so much. And then when they come back, they don't even remember how much they spent.
Right.
Even when they're paying their credit card bill, because you pay it all in advance. We pay, you could pay over in a couple of months. The way we work our itinerary planning, they don't even remember people don't remember how much they spent. They remember the memories. They remember the experiences.
Right.
They remember the food. They remember, this particular food tour that they did, and they've never tasted anything so delicious as that fresh bread that came out of that oven, that kind of thing, or having an outdoor lunch and there's a chateau in the background. And and somebody comes in and is serving you, and you're dressed all in white, and all you can see is the valleys, and you can feel the history around you. Those are experiences that are, you can't even put a price on them, because those are things that stay in your heart forever, right? Yeah.
And that's the beauty of, because some people are where they would just go online and try to put their trip together. But that's the beauty of connecting with me at Jordan Travel Enterprise, Travel with Eva, and with Julia, is that you're going to get that special treatment and know that the special places, and we find out what like you said, it's not one size fits all. We find out what's special
Definitely
to you,
yeah.
and put a trip together that is going to be a memory that lasts a lifetime. So thank you, Julia, so much for taking this time to talk with us. I do want to, if you could put in the message field, I know that you have a DVD that people might be interested if they want to know more. If you could put that in the message field,
okay. Send a message. Okay. All right. So the DVD is
the site for that.
African Americans in Paris. It is a 2-set DVD that are short pieces. The first one has pieces on W.E.B. Du Bois and what he did in the 1900 World Fair, the exhibition that he put together. There's the artist Henry Tanner, and then there's 3 women artists: Lois Melo Jones, Augusta Savage, and so these are people that you may know about, but you may not know about. There is the jazz story. So we have the World War II, the Harlem Hellfighters, a whole section on them, and then they were the ones that brought jazz to Paris. But their leader, there's a whole section on him, a whole video on him. Eugene, what's his name? James Reese Europe, who brought the jazz band, who were also soldiers, to Paris, and that's how jazz actually got to Paris. So you learn about that in the next DVD segment. The next DVD, you have a 12-minute piece on Josephine Baker, images you've probably never seen before, but it's not just images; it's analysis of the situation. It's not just a linear thing. We want you to think about the experience that these people have had and the influence they've had on the culture, and what questions have these brought up, and so that you, as a viewer, will ask those questions too, and then you get a deeper sense of the African American history in Paris. So the DVDs are called African Americans Paris. There's 2 of them, and the website is africanamericans.com. I do presentations around Canada, United States, and also in Europe. And we show the DVDs, then we have discussions around them. The last one we did was at the Alliance Française in San Francisco about a month ago. And so we keep on the website as well a list of our upcoming appearances, or in my newsletter, I announce our upcoming appearances as well for this and for our new Paris Noir DVD, which is a documentary. It's a 1-hour documentary on the history of African Americans in Paris. So we've not only the original goal, why I started doing these tours, and so I'll go back to your original question, Eva. Why I started doing these tours is because I've always been interested in education, teaching, and so I consider my role to be a teaching role, as well as helping travelers to get the best travel experience. But with the DVDs, this adds to the teaching and the learning, and then feeling that Paris and places in Europe feel like home to you, because we all have history there and a deep history. And these give you the reasons why, put faces to names.
Okay. Well, we have a visitor who's joined us, Elizabeth Hall, Smart Office Help, and Elizabeth is well traveled. Do you have any questions, Elizabeth, that you'd like to ask before we close out our time? And thank you for joining.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Nope, just dropped in. Well, it's nice of you to drop in, Elizabeth.
Well, that's good. So, she said, I'd like to go to Paris one day. Oh, we'd love to help you with that. And Julia is a wealth of experience and knowledge in terms of travel to Paris and beyond. And also, I wanted to have you to put in your website so that in the message field, so that if someone would like to, you have some great videos walking the spirit tours, and that they can go and check out and find out more. And you all, if you're interested in going on a tour to Paris, or going on a Black Paris tour and beyond, we talked about the beyond, then contact me at jordantravelenterprise.com, and I'll put that in the chat field also. And would love to talk to you and work on putting together an amazing tour and package for you that will have memories for a lifetime, and utilize the expertise and knowledge of Julia. There's nothing like going to a destination and having that connection with someone who can tell you, oh, these are your interests. Oh, you've got to go here. You've got to go there. That special experience that you won't have if you just go online and book your travel.
Definitely. And then you get home and then you read about something, either, oh my goodness, I wish I'd known about that.
Right. So let me put in my link to my website. And Julia, you can do some closing remarks, and we will close out.
All right. So thank you, Eva, for this opportunity to encourage people to travel far and travel wide. Just, get your bucket list out. And if Paris is not it, somewhere in France is bound to be on it, because France is such a varied country. But then all around Europe, there are some wonderful experiences to be had. And it's a treat to have somebody prepare your travel for you and save you all that stress and, just trying to figure out what's what. But the bottom line is travel. Gather your friends, gather your family, or come by yourself, because it's, you can make friends easily. And there's so many organizations of solo travelers that there's no shortage, but just travel and widen your world, widen your vision, and make lots of friends around the world.
Well, thank you so much, Julia. It's been a pleasure to have you. And I always like to close out with a word of encouragement. So have a blessed and prosperous day, and take a moment to be a blessing to someone else. So bye for now, and look back. We will be having another travel talk coming soon, where I'll have some travel professional and travel experts like Julia answer the question, why use a travel agent? Why use a travel professional? I can just book it online. So we'll be asking that question and answering, and that's coming soon. So again, thank you, Julia, and
my
bye
pleasure
for now.
Okay, thank you.
Au revoir. Au revoir. Okay, bye for now.